only a few days after entering the spotlight in a manner anyone anticipated. Shiloh Jolie has taken a step that is altering people's perception of her permanently. Brad Pitt's daughter is just 19 years old. And Angelina Jolie is no longer merely referred to as a child celebrity. She is silently creating her own identity, and she did it on her own terms this time. What began as a dancing show has now developed into a much larger, involving a new role, a new name, and a message that many people feel is profoundly private. However, what precisely did Shiloh choose? Moreover, why does it seem like a pivotal moment? Not only for her, but for the whole the Jolie Pitt family? The turning point in the story. The most recent public appearance of Shiloh Jolie didn't bring a red carpet interview or a significant press trip, but it attracted notice right away around the internet. She made an appearance at a private dinner in Los Angeles to commemorate a cooperation between Isabel, the designer, Net-a-Porter, and Marant. An occasion that assembled a small group of prominent visitors but kept a low profile. In contrast to standard Hollywood displays, what was unique about the evening was not the guest list or the style, but Shiloh's part in the occasion, among other things. Crucially, the way she decided to present herself. Rather than going as a visitor or Shiloh was traveling with her mother, professionally acknowledged as a dance performance's choreographer, set to the song Naive by artist Luella. This was hardly a light-hearted engagement. The show included skilled dancers, Takao Suzuki, Keone Rose, and, because of her job, Shiloh was behind the routine's artistic direction. It's indicated one of the most obvious indications yet that she is interested in dancing not only as a hobby as well as a serious artistic endeavor. But what really caught them off guard was that credit's associated name. According to the official press release, she was not identified as Shiloh Jolie or Shiloh Pitt Jolie. Rather, she was identified by the name Jolie. Sure. For the first time, that version of her identity had been utilized in a professional setting, and it instantly provoked conversation. Though small, the shift had a significant impact. Sure serves as a condensed, more stylized form of her name, but Jolie reaffirms who she lawfully adopted following Pitt's removal from her last name. This was not an isolated incident. It went through a court procedure that started Shiloh's official 18th birthday, filed to have Pitt removed from her name. Later, her request was granted, and she formally changed to Shiloh Nouvelle Jolie. This is made considerably more noteworthy by that reports verified she was in charge of the separately. She paid for her own attorney's services, the legal work herself, a choice that indicates a degree of independence that is unusual for someone her age, particularly in a prominent family. The credit for the choreography, along with Jolie's opening, implies something more than just a name change. It is an intentional move into a new stage in her life, one in which she is expressing her desires to be observed, both directly and in a professional manner. Additionally, for many observers, this wasn't merely concerning a performance at a private gathering. At that moment, Shiloh silently declared who she is going to become. The name change that was never merely a name. Long before the name Sure was known to the public. According to a press release from Jolie, the charity, as that identity had already established through a choice that has far greater weight compared to most persons at first realized. Upon Shiloh's 18th birthday, she formally sued to have Pitt removed from her hyphenated last name, an action that swiftly made headlines, but was frequently reduced to a basic legal update. Actually, it was the first obvious indication that she was starting to divide her personal identity from the heritage of both parents, particularly her dad. What distinguishes this choice is way it was managed. As stated by Shiloh did not rely on several reports, her mother's family or legal team assistance to start the procedure. Rather, she retained her own lawyer and she covered the full cost of the operation herself. This particular element could appear insignificant on the surface, yet it significantly alters how the circumstances are seen. It's wasn't a symbolic action motivated by public perception or family pressure. It was a young person's autonomous action. Adult who desired complete authority over how moving would determine her identity forward. Additionally, the legal system itself became into a issue of contention when a notification regarding the name was altered in a Los Angeles newspaper. According to several sources, the publication was a type of news, but her lawyer subsequently explained that it was only a necessary phase of the legal procedure. The explanation was important since it strengthened the notion that Shiloh wasn't looking for attention. She was adhering to protocol, finishing a change in herself that she experienced already made a private decision. At the same time, more context started to surface regarding the emotional context for the choice. Lawful representatives characterized it as an autonomous and important choice. After traumatic experiences, a statement that suggested more profound personal experiences without disclosing particulars. Just that wording changed the story from a standard legal modification to something more intricate, indicating that the choice could have been impacted by long-standing familial relationships instead, more than a single instant. Additionally, the change's date coincided with a longer transition period within the Jolie-Pitt household. The separation between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, which had started years ago earlier, was ultimately completed following a protracted legal dispute. At that time, tales of tense connections between Pitt and a number of his kids had come up time and time again. Although none of those reports specifically describe Shiloh's choice, they provide her a background that makes her motion that is simpler to comprehend. Later, when shown next to her appearance as Cher Jolie, the name change feels less like a singular occurrence. It is incorporated into a longer sequence. Initially, there was a legal split from her father's last name. Next, a new self-identification in a career environment. Every stage builds upon the one before it, creating a pattern that not only a personal decision, but a thoughtful created a shift into autonomy. When skill became a public declaration, should the name change, indicated a personal choice, followed by Shiloh's. The subsequent action turned that choice into a extremely public area. Her brief appearance in What's a Girl to Do by Diance did more than only present her with a broader audience. It changed how people saw her. The video was swiftly released, attracted online attention, but what stood? It wasn't only the music or the Shiloh's performance was the production. Viewers immediately focused on her presence, her control, and the level of she exuded confidence, with several remarking that she went above, carried a natural stage and met expectations. Presence that seemed more mature than experimental. This particular instance was significant since it demonstrated a distinct aspect of her trajectory. Until then, her training in dancing had mostly covered in separate clips, shared by instructors and choreographers who had collaborated with her. These films demonstrated her commitment, demonstrating steady progress and discipline over time, but they were still restricted in scope. That was altered by the music video. It positioned her within a larger cultural framework, showcasing her work to a worldwide audience that was not previously attached to her as a child of a celebrity. The response came right away and widely praised, with an emphasis on her technique and dedication as opposed to her background. But the reaction to the video was not only about how she performed. Additionally, it highlighted a more profound aspect of how she is placing herself in the business. In contrast to many children of celebrities who use acting to break into the entertainment industry, roles or appearances motivated by a brand, Shiloh made a decision that keeps her in part behind the scenes. By concentrating, she is emphasizing choreography on craft as opposed to visibility. This strategy enables her to establish credibility centered on ability rather than recognition, which is a far more challenging path, but frequently results in enduring respect in artistic domains. In addition, at one point, this widespread achievement presented a more intricate emotional component. Inside her household, reports started to appear detailing how, when her father saw her, performance attracts attention. Sources claim that he experienced a mix of loss and pride. He was characterized, on the one hand, as sincere admiration for her skill and encouraging her to choose her own path. However, the occasion functioned as a reminder of how far away they relationship had developed. The same accomplishment that gave her acknowledgement also brought attention to the disparity in between them. In contrast, public achievement in conjunction with private distance provided an additional layer to the story. Shiloh wasn't merely stepping into her own profession. The reason for this was because she was autonomously, without the assistance of a father who was formerly referred to as strong bond with her. This made the moment more memorable for spectators. More than merely a professional achievement, it changed it into a subtle yet impactful declaration regarding her current position, both as an artist and as a person negotiating a complex ancestry. The father departed, seeing from a distance. As the public persona of Shiloh Jolie keeps developing, the emotional influence on Brad Pitt has grown to more challenging to ignore. His response is described in several reports to her latest achievements as profoundly ambivalent, blending sincere pride with a feeling of loss that he hasn't experienced ability to comprehend completely. According to those close to him, he is amazed by her ability and honors the guidance she is making a decision, but simultaneously, every new accomplishment acts as a reminder of the current distance in between them. What adds complexity to this circumstance? Is their relationship's past? Shiloh was frequently referred to as one of the kids he was closest to, someone who instinctively bonded with him and helped him during previous times of their life as a family. Because of this background, the current circumstances felt less like a slow drift and more like an abrupt disappearance. Sources claim that he has difficulty comprehend how a connection that was once so stable could get to a place where there is minimal or non-existent direct communication. Instead of attempting to make touch, according to sources, Pitt has made a deliberate choice to back off. Shiloh is allegedly receiving space from him, letting her make her own decisions without coercion, notwithstanding the fact that technique has its own emotional price. This change reflects an recognition that exerting excessive pressure might make things worse, and that any potential for reconstructing there she would have to initiate the romance willingness rather than his persistence. It's referred to as a waiting position, one that calls for tolerance, self-control, and acceptance of uncertainty. At the same time, there is a broader dynamic at play involving the rest of the family. Sources suggest that Pitt believes Shiloh holds a unique position among the siblings, someone whose actions could influence how others respond to him in the future. In that sense, his hope for reconciliation is not only about repairing a relationship with one child, but potentially restoring connections across the entire family. This belief adds another layer of pressure to the situation, as it ties a deeply personal relationship to a much larger outcome. There are also conflicting perspectives. There are conflicting views also about why the estrangement. Some tales say that Pitt traces some of the distance to continuing tensions with Angelina Jolie, others emphasize children themselves are closely identified with his mother and protective of her. This division points to the complexity of the emotive scenario has become legislative, judicial, and personal factors all interwoven. The fact appears to be there is not a cause but a mixture of happenings and experiences. Present shape of state. The family. As Shiloh moves on, building her career, reinventing her identity and autonomy decisions, Pitt is still stuck in a that he can only look on from the out. Her triumph is not for him alone something to rejoice over. It is also a ongoing reminder of a connection that has not yet made its way back. A family shift that can't be anymore disregarded. What is Shiloh Jolie's makeover about? Even more important is that it does not hold up on their own. And a trend has evolved slowly over time within the Jolie-Pitt family. One that is suggests that her choices are part of a broader change rather than isolated matter. Some of her brothers and sisters have gone, having the same direction, each of their own free will to distance themselves from the Pitt name in public environments. Zahara publicly posed herself as Zahara Marley Jolie with a sorority event at Spelman College, opting not to catch her father's name in that hour. Defining. Vivian was given credit as Vivian Jolie in a Broadway playbill, working side by side with her mother, a small yet conscious shift that did not to be missed. There have also been reports shown that Maddox has, at times, employed Jolie in non-legal situations, suggesting a predilection consistent with same motif. None of them collectively announced decisions, but, collectively, they form a distinct trajectory mirroring how the children are creating themselves. But this pattern is also even meaningful when compared to the family history timeline. Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt began years before, followed by a protracted court struggle that lasted for over a decade before finally being solved. During all that time, the youngsters was brought up in an environment that was continuing battles, public spotlight, and changing relationships. When each of them reached adulthood, now they weren't answering to one event, but to years of gathered experience. Shiloh's latest debut as Shiloh Jolie fits perfectly in that bigger framework. It is not only a personal rebranding but an extension of a family-wide identity of self-redefining. The oddity of her condition is that she visibility and clarity of herself transition. She not only changed the way her name is featured in a social or a program setting, she combined that with a change professional choreography move, a field of discipline, partnership and long-term commitment. She connected her identity in doing so to her work as a part of how she will be identified moving ahead. In the same time, the scenario still is unsettled on a deeper level. While the youngsters are apparently moving forward with a common sense of purpose, the underlying family dynamics have not came to a firm conclusion. Legal issues between Jolie and Pitt have created a climate where reconciliation isn't straightforward, and the emotional separation that has acquired over time and is irreversible. Fast, this leaves the family in a scenario in which progress in one area, such as personal progress and independence, exists in tension with unsolved one more. For Shiloh, this moment means a definite stride into adulthood, with choices that are at once personal and public. It emphasizes for the whole family a change that has been taking place slowly, but now difficult to miss. And for those who watch from the one outside, it calls into question that opens. Then each of the children proceeds to push forward on their own terms. Would those routes ever take you back to a place the family may reconcile, or has the direction having been set for good? How do you feel about Shiloh picking such a young age, her own name, her own journey? Age? Do you regard this as an independence or anything deeper in the familial line dynamic? Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories like this one. This